Good evening. My name is Jerry Cochran, and I'd like to call the City of Pasco Planning Commission meeting to order. I'd like to welcome all those in attendance tonight and ask you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. To begin tonight's meeting, I'd like to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Rosa Torres.
Present.
Mitchell Moffitt. Present. Paul Mendez.
Present.
Kim Lehrman.
Present.
Abel Campos. Excused. Dana Crutchfield. Rachel Teal.
Present.
Jay Handler.
Present.
And Jerry Cochran. Mr. Chair, there are 8 members present. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. The Planning Commission is an advisory board made up of volunteers appointed by the City Council. The purpose of the Planning Commission is to provide recommendations to the City Council regarding changes to the city's comprehensive plan, land use updates, block grant allocations, and zoning code. The Planning Commission is tasked with considering the long-term growth and development of the community, the impact of land use decisions on the community, livability, economic opportunity, housing affordability, public services, and the environment. I'd like to remind the audience that tonight's proceedings are being broadcast live on the City of Pasco's Facebook page and on Spectrum Charter Cable PSC Channel 191, and will be rebroadcast several times during the next month. This meeting is also being recorded so that you can watch it later on the City of Pasco's website, which is pasco-wa.gov. You click on the video on demand link there and make your selection of the meeting you want to watch. There are copies of the meeting agenda available on the back table tonight, so you may follow along. And at this time, I'd like to remind everyone to silence your cell phones to prevent any interruptions during our meeting. For those present this evening, if you are given the opportunity or when you want to have the opportunity to address the Commission in our public forum, public meeting, please come to the podium, speak clearly into the microphone, and state your name and city of address for our records. Before we begin tonight's meeting, I need to remind the audience that the Planning Commission that Washington state law requires public meetings like the one being held this evening not only to be fair, but also to appear to be fair. In addition, Washington state law prohibits Planning Commission members from participating in discussions or decisions in which the member may have a direct interest or may be either benefited or harmed by the Planning Commission's decision. Any objection to any Planning Commission member hearing any matter on tonight's agenda needs to be aired at this time or it'll be waived. First, are there any Planning Commission members who have a declaration at this time regarding any of the items on the agenda? For me, I'll declare that I'm on the board of one of the CDBG applicants, and so I will recuse myself from the voting from that portion of the agenda. Second, is there anyone in the audience this evening who would object to any Planning Commission member from hearing any of the items on the agenda? Let the record show there were no declarations. We as a Planning Commission need and value your input. It helps us to understand the issues more clearly and to make better recommendations to City Council. Furthermore, in many cases, your input here at this Planning Commission meeting is your only opportunity to get your facts and opinions placed into the official record the City Council will use to make its decision. I encourage you to take full advantage of the opportunity. Moving on to the agenda, the first item or next item is the approval of the meeting minutes from September. Actually, they are from August 17th, 2023. Before we Jacob, I wanted to ask for a clarification. You had sent out an email on a correction. Is that in the minutes or was that elsewhere?
The correction was regarding tonight's staff report.
Oh, it's tonight's report, not last. Okay, correct. For some reason I misunderstood that. So for the meeting minutes, they were mailed out to the commissioners ahead of time, and I trust you had the opportunity to take a look at them, and I would entertain either discussion or a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
This is Commissioner Lehrman. I move to approve the August 17th meeting minutes as read.
It's been moved by Commissioner Lehrman and seconded by Commissioner Moffett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Let the record show that the meeting minutes were unanimously approved. We have no old business or unfinished business items, so we will move into this evening's public hearing agenda. The first item on our public hearing agenda is the 2024 Community Development Block Grant Fund Allocations, BGAP 2023-003, and I think we will turn it over to Ms. Webb.
Good evening, Planning Commission. To start this evening, I wanted to remind you what the intent of the Community Development Block Grant Program is. It provides annual grants on a formula basis to states, cities, and counties to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and suitable living environment, and by expanding economic opportunities principally for low to moderate income persons. Next slide. As a reminder, staff identified a criteria to align with council goals, the Tri-Cities Consortium Consolidated Plan, partial funding possibilities for projects, and whether the applicant's projects met the intent of the CDBG/HUD mission. The applicants were given a score based on how many goals their project met the criteria. These are the 2024 CDBG applicants with a brief description in the first column. The second column is the total score. The third column is the requested amount, and the last column is staff's recommendation that would line up with the criteria. As a recap, there was only $716,474 estimated funds, and once you take out the CDBG program admin and the Section 108 debt service payment, there was available for funding $333,474. Staff's recommendation is to fund admin, program admin, code enforcement rental officers, neighborhood business district improvements, code and community program, CHIP, minor rehab, ADA improvements, and neighborhood traffic mitigation, which will be combined together, and Section 108 debt service. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the percentages. So for 2024, there would be 46% of the funding going to housing, 1% would go to public service, 18% would go to economic opportunities, and 35% would go to Section 108 debt service. After discussion and staff evaluation, it is recommended that the activities set forth would best meet council city goals in the Tri-Cities Consortium Consolidated Plan and be most effective in carrying out the objectives for the city in 2024. Your review and consideration for recommendation to the City Council would be appreciated.
Clarify too, the scoring system, there was multiple factors. One was the risk factor and one was the overall score. Is a score a composite of value and risk or alignment, or is it just the alignment with program score? Is that, because there was a risk score too?
Yeah, there was a risk score, but that was not calculated in the criteria that we came up with.
So you looked at more of the other value criteria?
Yes.
Okay. So the score that is for your top recommendations is just representing the value, but you've kind of factored that into your risk, the risk into that as well.
Correct.
Okay. So I'll entertain questions or comment or feedback for staff. What we have here is we have a couple choices. Is we have opportunity to approve as staff recommended. We can ask questions and clarification within those recommendations. If we have a movement and second and approval of the staff recommendations, we can move forward. If we don't, or there are alternate views, we also have that opportunity to do that as well. So, but let's start with, are there questions for staff on these individual programs or the recommendations they made?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Mendez. I got a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, are there any restrictions on how much we can allocate towards program administration? It looks like we're allocating almost better than 18%. I know there is a restriction on the home program coming up for discussion.
So with CDBG, you cannot allocate more than 20% towards program and admin.
Great, so we're under. Thank you, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Lehrman.
Go ahead.
Okay. Looking at code enforcement officers, if we didn't have CDBG funds, would we still be able to take in from the general fund to be able to pay for the code enforcement officers?
There would likely be a substantial decrease with regarding funding of that particular role for the city.
And then how many years has code enforcement officers been paid for from CDBG funds?
If I remember correctly, I think they're going on like year 6.
Okay. And do other local cities do it the same way to fund their code enforcement officers through their CDBG funds?
If you're talking about the Tri-Cities, no, they don't. They fund them from their general funds.
Okay.
But code enforcement is actually one of the biggest activities that other cities in the state of Washington actually do, because it does help with other aspects of the program.
Thank you.
Just to follow on to that too, do the code, as I recall from the presentation, there was 1 or 1.5 code enforcement officers, and we're increasing it by 2 with these funds. Is that correct? It's not here, but I recall something around that.
Yeah, so they were actually asking for 3, so we're giving them 1.5 to be able to do the rental inspection.
Commissioner Torres, you had a question?
I just, I think it kind of follows on to Commissioner Lehrman's comment or question is, I'm kind of concerned about the sustainability of going forward with keep funding these inspectors out of these funds. And I think the other thing too is, I mean, I understand the criteria that was used to score these, but I kind of feel like some of the other items in the list also would benefit our community, and probably in a more kind of greater good sense. Like especially some of the things like, you know, the YMCA piece, that the Kurtzman ball improvements, ball field improvements, excuse me, and, you know, just something that's a little bit more community-based rather than rental inspectors, which seems like a very narrow use of the funding.
Commissioner Torres, I can help address that question. And staff certainly agrees that there's a variety of these programs and projects that certainly are well-intended and offer great benefit to not only Pasco, but certainly the whole metropolitan region here. One of the things that is particularly different, substantially different in this year's effort is that we aimed to achieve alignment with adopted council goals and the other 3 criteria you see on the screen here. And rental inspectors play a very important role in ensuring that our housing stock, in particular our rental units, which is more than just your apartment buildings, but homes that are for rent, et cetera, remain in a good and safe, habitable manner. We often receive phone calls from residents living in substantial living conditions, unsafe due to hazardous materials, asbestos, unsafe with regards to fire protection, et cetera. And I can't speak to why it's been funded primarily through the CDBG, but I think one of the things that's becoming more evident, particularly as we move forward with our housing efforts, is that Pasco has a shortage. I mean, quite frankly, the region has a shortage of multifamily units, which requires rental inspectors. And what we know right now is that there's a dramatic rise in need of multifamily units. And one of the ways to help get those units up and running, the new units up and running for folks to live and have a home to live in, and also for those older units to remain in a safe, habitable manner, is to ensure that they are inspected on a frequent basis. And those that have less violations are inspected less. So there's certainly not folks just running around looking at different units randomly. There's a method to it. And based on the alignment with the council goals and then just the dramatic increase of both units right now and those that we'll need in the future, In that particular item in particular was why staff felt it achieved alignment with many of the goals that we see on the screen today. That being said, this has also been a learning experience for staff, not only in CED, but other departments where this will be in front of council. Whatever the recommendation from the Planning Commission is, will be in front of council. And at some point, there will likely be a discussion of whether projects that are in the CDBG allocations in terms of being funded are better served by being funded by other sources. And if that's the case, then in years that come, then it is likely we'll see a shifting in how projects move out of needing CDBG funding because they're funded via other sources, allowing us to open up the door for more opportunities and other community-wide benefits.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I agree with you that it's important. I'm not discounting the value and the importance that the rental inspectors do and their function. I'm just questioning more of if this seems like a core function that as a city maybe we should be funding out of different funds. This seems to be like more for community-based items, and so that's the only thing I think I would raise, or I would have liked noted, maybe on a recommendation to council that just like you said, that this maybe should be funded out of different funds and therefore kind of reallocate and funding for those very important things that they do, but out of a different bucket.
This is Commissioner Crutchfield. I have a question, I guess, for Mr. Gonzalez. As far as the code enforcement officers, I believe you said that we have 3 total. And if this wasn't funded, we wouldn't be getting any others from a different source or fund in the city? No?
So they were asking for 3,
Okay.
and we're trying to fund 1.5.
I see.
If we don't give them, then no, they will not be hiring any more people.
How many does the city have currently?
1.
1. Okay, I want to say that I think that this is a very important part of your recommendations towards the top. It not only, I believe, would benefit the inhabitants of units or rentals, but I think broader, it also helps people who live adjacent that in the community that may be definitely affected by violations of codes or living situations or neighborhood problems that need to be addressed, and there are a lot throughout the city currently. So I just wanted to say that I thought that that was a very good use of funds and would help more than just the inhabitants. And I would also maybe hope the city would be looking at opportunities to expand their code enforcement staff. More than just 1 officer, I think, is a very low number for the growth that we are in the midst of, and apparently will be.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you all. Go ahead.
Commissioner Moffitt here. So to continue on with the code enforcement questions and information. So I do agree that it's very important to have code enforcement, but it brings up questions to me. If we only have 1, why? Why hasn't this been addressed before? 1 for a city this size is absolutely amazing. I know a city on the other side of the mountains, some retired law enforcement on the other side of the mountains with 4,000 people that have 3. So first of all, I don't understand why we only have 1, and I know probably nobody here can answer that question, but it really concerns me. The other thing is, I don't know any, and maybe we're unique in this manner, but to fund a code enforcement officer with the CDBG, it just again amazes me. What in the other cities, in our other adjacent cities, can you tell me who funds their code enforcement? Where they get that money from?
Would assume probably from their general fund. I don't know.
General
But just to clarify, this is for a rental inspector for the code enforcement.
Understand.
Code enforcement actually has 6 code officers,
Oh, okay.
and they have 1 rental.
Okay.
He does nothing
That's
but
better.
rentals. So when you move to the
Understand.
city of Pasco, if you want to have a rental property, you have to apply for an application, and then that gets you put into the process of getting your.
And that duty
property.
can't be taken from what we already have, so this is
Yeah,
gotta be
no.
something
Mm-mm.
different.
The other code officers, they address over 500 cases a year.
I understand.
So, yeah.
I do agree we need the rental inspectors. We don't want to be known as a city with shanty rentals.
Right.
You know, once that hits the public, the papers and stuff, if that were the case, we'd be in a world of hurt in so many ways. Our property values would drastically reduce everywhere, even the private ownership. So I see the need. To me, it's still interesting the size that we are, why we only have one. And every other place that I'm aware of, and again, I don't know around here so much, but the code enforcement, all code enforcement comes from the law enforcement side. And maybe that's not our case here, you know, but it's under the same umbrella that I'm used to. So if it's not our case here, then is there a possibility, or is that we can get funding some other way, you know, like as brought up before, for the future? If we do pass this with staff recommendations, I suggest we put code enforcement on notice and say, we're not going to do this again. You know, you need to find another way. That being said, for $10,000, that's what I'm seeing here, right?
No, 210. 210.
210. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong line. Okay. I was looking at 10,000. I'm like, how is that going to fund 1.5 anything? You know. So, all right. I just think that they need to look for funding somewhere else, and we need to put on as many as they need, though. So that's just my 2 cents on that aspect.
Great feedback. You know, one of the things we can do, and we will have we'll open it up for the public hearing as well, but one of our recommendations, we have several choices, and I will try to moderate because I'm not voting, so I'll try to help us through this. But we have several choices. We have the ability to, go with staff, move to go with staff recommendations as they are. We could also make a movement to say, we're going to amend staff recommendations and pull code enforcement out. That's an option for us. Or we could simply say, we're going to go ahead and approve staff recommendations, but we're going to also send a note to council, who it's really not our decision. We're making a recommendation to council. We could also send a recommendation to council that this should not be funded out of CDBG. It should be funded out of general fund, and that's our feedback to you as council when you make this. So we have a bunch of options that we can express that feedback, because it sounds like it's pretty common across the board here. So. Any other commissioners' questions or feedback? And I want to make sure that I also take time to open up for public hearing.
Real quick,
Yeah.
I reinforce the idea of code enforcement in the rental properties, and given what we've all been reading about the future of Pasco and what's going on here, the growth rate is going to be exponential, and clearly, I don't think 1.5 or 3 new code enforcement officers is going to be enough. We're going to be visiting this again for quite a while. So anyway, just FYI, just some input there.
Thank you. Anyone else, other commissioners or commissioners on the phone that want to comment before we move to the public hearing?
This is Commissioner Lehrman. I think for the last 3 years, I've been bringing it up, been wondering why employee staff has been part of the CBG or CDBG. So many letters right there. And so I just appreciate the conversations that each of the commissioners joined in and sharing their concerns and making sure that, as Rosa used the word sustainable, that we have employees that have a sustainable income salary that's awarded to them for the job that they do, the hard work they do. And so thank you all for sharing in your guys' input about this topic.
Excellent, thank you. If there's no other comments from commissioners, anyone on the phone?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, no, sorry, from commissioners. Oh. But I will open up for the public hearing. Okay, sounds like we have no more feedback questions from commissioners, so I will open the public forum or hearing, and if you want to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and city of address for the record. And also turn on the microphone.
Okay. James Larson, 9817 Star Lane. One question, I guess I didn't catch it. How overloaded is the code enforcement person that does the rental?
Extremely, and I would expect that case work, or I guess workload, to dramatically increase with the current units being constructed today and those that we will likely see over the a very long period of time.
Okay. All right. I agree that that needs to have another code enforcement. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you for your feedback. Anyone else for the public hearing item on this agenda item? Go ahead, come on up.
Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Steve Hallinan with the YMCA. YMCA is located in Richland. We've run the Martin Luther King Center for about 42 years now. And obviously this is concerning. We were encouraged to increase our funding requests this year, but even at the continued funding, the partnership originally started between the YMCA, the City of Pasco, and United Way. When United Way stepped out, I approached the mayor at the time and said, hey, we're going to have a tough time making up with this money with our current fundraising efforts. So the city came forward with CDBG money, and it's helped us keep this going. I got concerned when I look at this, not only the impact of the Y program, but the King Center as a whole. That would be losing funding not only for the city staff, but for the Y. And so I am concerned with the neighborhood kids. It seems self-serving, but really what I'm looking at is for the neighborhood kids in Kurtzman Park to make sure that the King Center remains an active, viable place that addresses the low-income nature of that community. We will continue to run the King Center for as long as we can. But without some city funding in there or another source coming at that level, I'm not sure if we can carry that on for more 1 or 2 years. So I share that as you consider this. Just understand a lot of the nonprofits that are here for our community kids and our families, and we appreciate the past support and ongoing. Any questions I might be able to answer on behalf of the commission?
Commissioner Lehrman, you said that you were encouraged to increase the funding.
We were. Outgoing leadership had said, hey, we think you need to come back, increase your funding for this year. We said, great, we'll come back next year and increase that. So, things change, and I understand that. It's just, look at a large increase, going, okay, we're not going to get that, but we may not have anything. And so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously, you can see the bottom line there.
Yep.
$2.5 million for a $500 million or $500,000 pot is tough, right?
It is.
So staff had to make some tough recommendations, and we wish the CDBG was higher than it is. So,
thank you.
Thank you for being here. Anyone else wish to speak on any of the CDBG items or anything in general from a public hearing perspective?
My name is Ron Anderson. I live at 2909 Road 100. I'm looking at your chart there, and if I'm understanding it right, everything in the amount requested is going to happen, or are you changing what's in the third column? That's what's going to happen.
The third column is the staff's recommendations. We only have $714,000 available, and we have a mandatory $250,000 debt repayment. And so what's remaining is with the funds left, what can we do based on the criteria staff came up for scoring? So it's those top boxes up towards the top of the chart are the staff's recommendations that we're considering. So it would not, the things below that yellow line in the third column would not be funded based on staff recommendations. If
Okay,
that helps.
now I understand. I wasn't sure I understood what you guys
Great.
were doing.
Did I get that right? Okay.
Thank you.
Let me close the file. Anyone else on the public hearing side for any of the items or this in general?
Are you talking about the 2023 comprehensive planning amendments?
No. This is just as the first agenda item, which is just community block grant, development block grant. Last call, anyone for a public hearing on this agenda item? And the other agenda items, we will open the public hearing again. So, All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing, and I see, know we have some other questions for staff from commissioners, so go ahead, Commissioner Moffett.
Mr. Moffett here again. As I look through this, I could just imagine some of the public not understanding what some of these things mean that we're actually you're requesting that we allocate funding for. So could you go through line item, the first one, well, not the first one, because the one is how much is there, but, right, no. Can you go through the first ones where you're saying the staff recommendations, anything that you recommend that we allocate funding for, and tell us which one of those or any of them are not a city function, right? It's for example, the YMCA wouldn't be a city function, right? That's an outside agency asking for funding. So, for example, code enforcement would be a city function. So can you tell us how many of those are not a city functions for the public so they can better understand your list here?
So this year, when we created this criteria and had it line up with council goals and the consolidated plan and everything else, and then we gave them the score, everything that we're recommending to fund is a city project. They all made a national objective, so.
I understand. I just wanted to make sure that the public was aware of what we're doing. This is probably the most difficult thing I've done on here. I would love to give everybody every single penny they're asking for. I'm sure all of you would, but this is a very, very difficult thing for us to do.
Yes.
Not just tell somebody no, they can't have it.
If I don't know if you don't have it off the top of your head or available, what has been a couple, like 2 previous years? Because it seems like the CDBG was higher in previous years, a lot higher. Can you remind us, like maybe the previous 2 years, if you know that?
So 2 years ago it was 967, and last year we got 757. So each year it's been going down.
Thank you. Any other? Go ahead, Commissioner Crossfield.
Thank you. I had a question on the ADA improvements for sidewalks and that traffic mitigation. I have been seeing a lot of work being done on, tearing out the sidewalks that don't comply with that. So I wondered, and I think it's state mandated or something, like you have so much time to complete that, perhaps. So I'm wondering, is there any other vehicle by which that funds can be obtained for that would free up some of these block grant funds, or is it the same? I don't know.
Currently, right now, no. One of the challenges with those two in particular is that these are improvements that would happen in areas that are already developed. So new development, you're building up to the ADA and today's standards, right? Curb, gutter, sidewalk, the full width, etc. Along with neighborhood traffic calming measures. But we don't have a mechanism to identify which neighborhoods or what type of improvements are necessary in existing neighborhoods that are dealing with problems today. So staff's intent with the combination of these two projects and line items is to develop a pilot program that eventually we can identify other resources to fund those efforts. But until that's done, right now we're left with very limited resources and kind of in the same boat as everyone else here.
Thank you. So my question would be, like, for instance, on Court Street where you have the Jack in the Box, the gas station there, and they were doing some, renovation to make it ADA. Does the business or the owner or anyone like that have a responsibility to contribute to that effort? Because I know the state, or I believe the state, has certain guidelines of when these things have to be remedied to be ADA compliant. So I wondered if that might be the case. I don't know.
Yeah, the ADA, the American with Disabilities Act, along with state requirements, certainly have deadlines about when these improvements should be in place. Unfortunately, most jurisdictions are in the same situation that City Pasco is, which is there's simply just too much improvements that need to be made given the resources available. This certainly won't fix all of the sidewalks or build all the sidewalks in neighborhoods that don't have any, or fix all the ADA ramps that don't exist today, but we believe it'll make a small dent in the neighborhoods that most need it. staff will ensure that when we develop the criteria to identify those neighborhoods that do need it, that it aligns as best they can with the objectives of the CDBG program itself. So that at least it kind of nests back up with the overall intent of the Community Development Block Grant Program.
But the property owner doesn't have any responsibility in that effort. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Gonzalez, if there's something identified on an individual property, it's not in a public right-of-way, isn't the owner notified of a non-compliant ADA issue? Isn't the owner required to do something about that?
Not if it was installed, depending on when the development occurred, if it was built at the standards at the time that met compliance, then that might be, then it probably wouldn't be the case. And I apologize for not having the full-fledged answer for the commission this evening. But in this particular, for these two particular programs, we're looking more at residential neighborhoods. And so in most residential neighborhoods that don't have sidewalks or lack complete infrastructure with regards to streets, curb gutter, sidewalk, ADA, crosswalks, etc., it might be overburdensome to require a neighborhood to build sidewalks throughout their entire neighborhood when, you know, homeowners just simply move there expecting that to be there and it not being the case when they moved in. This would be more oriented towards neighborhoods versus commercial business districts.
Remember from the presentation that we had, like now about a month ago, this isn't to actually fix the sidewalks. This is just to design a plan to fix the sidewalks, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect this to be something to an extent that would be on the CDBG funding list for several years in a row.
I remember Ms. Buckley saying it would be a survey of needs in order to be.
That is one of the elements of a pilot is what other cities have done is they'll reach out to community members, neighborhoods, and ask, you know, is there an improvement that is necessary in this neighborhood? And one of the ways you can kind of begin to select those neighborhoods is you can start by looking at neighborhoods within close proximity to public schools or public facilities, parks, public transportation, etc., hospitals, places that people need access to and safe access to. So we can already narrow it down, and then we can reach out to neighborhoods and seek their input on, you know, what is their level of mobility or mobility challenges. If there's no sidewalks, certainly that's substantial when you think about the weather and the climate and the different mobility challenges that individuals in the city may have. If it's missing sidewalks, ADA ramps that don't exist, etc., that begins to come into play too. So I think with both of these, the idea with combining them is that both really hit at the same thing as being barriers to mobility for residents in the city. And once we can narrow down the criteria and develop a pilot program, I think it would be on staff's responsibility to identify other resources that are more sustainable versus a changing and what seems to be decreasing amount from the Community Development Block Grant Program.
Wonderful. Next, I have a comment and a question. So I've heard from multiple people that the utility poles along Sylvester Street, along Edgar Brown Stadium, is in the way for those who would be in a wheelchair trying to get down the sidewalk between the fence, the school district fence, and the utility poles.
Yeah, that's correct. And in fact, unfortunately, that's the case in a lot of older neighborhoods of the city. Can't explain why that is the case, but right across the street at Volunteer Park, we have telephone poles and utility poles in the middle of the sidewalk. And if you're in a wheelchair, a stroller, etc., you know, you're challenged on top of, you know, the circumstances given. That being said, Sylvester Street's going through a fairly significant public works project, which will have new sidewalks, wider sidewalks, etc. So hopefully that is addressed within that project.
And then second is my question. So when this was presented to us, the ADA improvements was a low priority on the list. And I'm really happy to see that this survey, this pilot plan, is now at a higher score. Can you share with us a little bit about the conversations or how it matched up on the new rubric?
I think Kristen might be able to provide the very specific definition of what the CDBG program was intended to do. But you know, barriers to transportation or transportation barriers have a relationship with community mobility outside of can I get from place A to place B. If you don't have access to a public transportation facility, or if it's difficult or not even an option to walk to the grocery store or to your place of employment or to the doctor's office, etc., or the sidewalk infrastructure is just missing, it presents a significant barrier to a variety of residents who otherwise would have no other option for their transportation choices. And so I think when we took another review at all of the projects carefully and vetted them again through the lens of the criteria you see on the screen, council goals and transportation and safety are two critical transportation goals. The consortium consolidated plan, the funding possibility, and the overall mission, scores changed throughout that time frame.
Also, if you want to see the scoring particulars, it's in the memo. So each what it was eligible for. So, any other questions or feedback, Commissioner Torres?
This is more of a comment, and I understand all of the projects and the recommendations, and I just feel like it just doesn't sit well with me that all of these items that are being recommended. I understand that there was a criteria. I understand we had a thing, but I almost feel like the council goals have skewed, you know, these type of projects to be almost like augmenting the city budget. And these are all like seem to be like core functions that our city should be doing anyway, with or without a grant. And I think that is part of the piece that is a bit frustrating about this, is because, you know, if we didn't have this grant, then how would we accomplish these things? How do we sustain these things over time? These are things, you know, that we should be doing as a city, that we should be providing to our citizens, not using grant money that is not guaranteed. And then the other piece of that is that this grant money was, you know, supposed to be for community development, like community enrichment. And you know, that's in the name. And so like these are like basics that we should be doing, and it's not really going above and beyond to the development of our community. So, you know, I just want to make that comment and have it recorded. And I understand, and not to diminish the work that the staff has done or that you guys have put together. You know, I totally understand, you know, the importance of all of these functions and all these things that were on the list, but it's just, it comes down to that. So, thanks.
And very much with what Commissioner Torres just stated, that these are very important, but I kind of believe that if possible, they should be coming out of funds or that we should be doing just even when we don't have a grant money. Those grant monies should be more for the other items that in, you know, the programs that are on this. So anyway, thank you.
Chairman, I agree, echo absolutely from Commissioner Crutchfield and also Commissioner Torres. So part of our council goals, or the council goals, is also a sense of belonging and safety too. And so quite a few of these opportunities on here create community, such as YMCA MLK Center, Kurtzman Park, Mid-Columbia Meals on Wheels, Arc Therapeutic Recreation, and in part of also council's goals is safety. And so when you take a look at Pasco Domestic Violence Outreach, not having that facility here in Pasco to be able to serve our residents as needed in their time of need. Yeah, I absolutely feel the same sentiments as both of these commissioners. This is difficult. You're right. And so thank you very much for making the rubric and helping us be able to see that how difficult it is for staff to be able to have to lean back in on what are those goals, what are the CDBG's goals matching the city's goals. You guys have had a very difficult job, and I would like to see in the future, such as what Commissioner Torres has said, that the city's business is taken care of from the city's general fund, and then the above and beyond that ends up creating community is what we can help fund through it. So, I mean it in the most respectful way. You guys are doing fantastic work, and we really appreciate it. And I love that each time that we talk, that you're open to ideas and suggestions, and you keep bringing back to us new tweaks and measurements to be able to help us understand the hard work you guys are doing, the difficult task before you. So thank you.
Discussion. Go ahead, Commissioner Moffitt.
You three ladies, I applaud you, and I agree with everything you said. That's exactly why I asked, what are these recommendations are not city functions? That's why I brought that up, because I'm looking at this and it looks like we're asking to fund the city. And again, with the utmost respect, because you guys work very, very hard at what you do. And I personally would like to see in the future, maybe not this time around, I don't know how this is going to come out today, but all this top stuff go away. It shouldn't be here. We should be funding all the bottom stuff. Because if you look at slide 2, please, you'll look at decent housing. I see how everything your recommendation helps with decent housing, almost every one of them somewhere, right? Suitable living environment. Again, you can see how that would apply. My problem is with the last one, expanding economic opportunities principally for low and moderate income persons. Maybe it's just me. I'm not seeing that. What I'm seeing for that one would be towards the bottom of the list, where you see scholarships, YMCA, different things like that are going to help expanding economic opportunities principally for low and moderate income persons. Maybe I'm not seeing it in the top part of that, but it looks like we're only addressing 2 out of 3 with this recommendation.
I agree with everybody here. I think it's too bad. I think it's it's too bad. I know you put a lot of work in on this, but why don't we wipe the slate clean and fund all these things on the top out of the general fund? It's only $500,000. I say that only, but you know, let's fund those out of the general fund or something, and put all that money down in the items on the bottom of the list. I think I'd feel a lot more comfortable with what we're doing up here if that were to take place.
Yeah, if I may add, so we do have a motion for the commission. Staff is certainly acknowledges and respects the discussion from the public this evening, and we agree. It's unfortunate. That being said, with a little bit more direction, we can go back to the drawing table and come back in October with the revised recommendation or alternatives for the commission to take a look at. But I think staff would appreciate a little bit more direction in terms of what elements you would specifically out of the goals that, unless you want to change those, see how the scores are being achieved, or if you would like to see certain projects moved up, what we can do to document and justify that decision before it gets back to for your review, but certainly in front of council. This is good practice for council, so we appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I mean, one of the options, again, we have a couple options at our disposal. We can go with staff recommendations, which it sounds like maybe that's not the popular one right now. We also could ask staff to come back with a new recommendation that eliminates all city projects and focuses on the non-city projects. We can also make a recommendation for an amendment, but the challenge with amendments is it's got to total the amount. So I would probably recommend we ask staff to go back and work it, but it's up to you guys to make those motions. I'm not going to vote, but if you guys want to go ahead and make a motion, what you think is best, we certainly have that. But I agree with Commissioner, or with Mr. Gonzalez, we have to probably give the specific guidance of what we want in our recommendation. If we want them to go rescore, leaving the city projects out, That's another option for us. If we want them to just focus on non-city projects and come back with a part of it is an amount that would fit within the budget we have. So that's the other challenge. So I'm open to your movements.
Can I say one thing, just to remind you guys, with the amount that we have, which was 714,674, program admin has to come out. And so does the debt service. So you have $333,000. So just want to remind you guys of that.
So maybe the recommendation might be something along the lines of, with the remaining amount that we're not obligated to, come back with a non-city project list that's scored and ranked. That could be one of our recommendations.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good feedback for staff. And in particular, what we heard today was a much bigger focus on the last element of the vision statement on the screen here. Taking a look at those projects that provide more resources, certainly for the residents that need and deserve them, based on the criteria established. So
this is Commissioner Lehrman. The question I have is it likely that you can be able to, the city can be able to find $330,000 to be able to fund?
yeah, I won't be able to answer that without my boss and council discussion, but certainly this will be in front of them at some point.
We also have the ability to make that part of our recommendation. We can make that say, we're recommending these funded projects. We recommend you find money in the general fund for these. That could be our recommendation to them, because that's what we are, is we're a recommending body, not a deciding body. So.
I really agree with what thank you, said. I feel like with the emphasis and that the city is placing upon going ahead with a lot of multifamily dwellings and all the growth and so forth, that it just seems like it should be part of that plan to, you know, be able to make sure that it's successful with code enforcement. And so again, that would seem like it would just be part of that piece that would be funded to do that and allocate these other funds elsewhere.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion. I would move, and it's actually kind of a mix of all this, so I'll go slow because I have to say this. So I would move that we ask staff to go back to the table, to come back in October, if that's enough time. Again, present this, but also present along with it a non-city plan where it takes out any city function, and also another option, a hybrid where there's a mix, not just cut it out. Like right now we've got one in front of us, or we come up with one, right? So we would ask staff to come back with 3 different plans that we can choose from or mix or look at, one being the one that we have in front of us, which is supporting the city. I don't want to kick that out because we should consider that, but we also need non-city and a hybrid mix.
So we have a motion for Commissioner Mossett for A, B, and C options, A being the current, C being non-city, and C being a hybrid. Do I have a second?
Commissioner Lehrman seconds it.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passed unanimously, and I'm recused. Work team, that's a hard agenda item to get through. Sometimes we've taken several hours on meetings to get through that, so great work. We're not done, but but we're making progress. So with that, I'm going to move on to the second public hearing item, a related item, which is the home program allocations and annual work plan, which is BGAP 2023-004. And I think I turn it over to Ms. Webb.
Yeah. So just a reminder, Pasco entered into a home consortium agreement with Kennewick and Richland in 1996, making the cities eligible for federal home dollars. Each member city is allocated an equal share of the entitlement after 10% is set aside for lead agency to administer the program, which is Richland, and 15% set aside for Community Housing Development Organization, which we call CHODO. Currently, there is a RFP out to obtain a CHODO until the end of December, and right now we have been aware that there's 2 agencies that are interested in applying for those funds. The estimated entitlement funds for Pasco is $179,197. Estimated program income is $100,000. These funds come from down payment assistance that have been paid off. And we're budgeting $100,000 for owner-occupied rehab. This is a new program that the consortium is trying to allocate monies for. These dollars will help bring homes up to current code standards. So with only $100,000, we're anticipating probably only doing about 2 rehabs. And currently we're working on one right now. Down payment assistance, we're only budgeting $10,000, anticipating only doing 1, as the purchase limit, which is set by HUD for Pasco, is $347,000, which means that the purchase limit for a house cannot be more than that. Tenant-based rental assistance, we're budgeting $109,197. The consortium has a contract with CAC, Community Action Connection, to administer the program for the 3 cities. And then program administration of $10,000 for staff to administer the program.
If there's any questions or feedback on this program? All right, if no questions or feedback from commissioners, I'll open the public hearing. Again, this is the second item, home program allocations and work plan. Are there any here tonight or on the phone that wish to speak on this particular public hearing agenda item? Second call for public hearing. Any of those that wish to speak on this? All right, and final call. All right, we will close the public hearing, and commissioners, are there any questions for staff, or if not, or feedback? If not, I'd entertain a motion on this particular item. The motion that staff recommends is at the bottom of the second page of the memo, if you want a reference on that for that.
Commissioner Lerman? I move the Planning Commission forward the recommendation as presented to the City Council workshop for consideration.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lerman and seconded by Commissioner Hendler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Let the record show that the motion passed unanimously.
Just wanted to give you guys a heads up. So, so far for 2023, Pasco has already helped 13 families with tenant-based rental assistance for a total of $82,890. Altogether, the Tri-Cities Consortium, which is all 3 cities, has helped a total of 35 families for a total of $261,000. And those funds, with those families that are getting help, they can actually get assistance for up to 2 years.
Thank you for that, and thank you for preparing that. All right, the final public hearing item is the 2023 or 2020? Okay. All right, we're still in 2023, I guess. Comprehensive plan amendments. Mr. Gonzalez, I assume.
Good evening, commissioners. This is the presentation on the establishing the docket for the 2023 comprehensive plan amendment cycle. Wanted to give the Planning Commission a little bit of background about how this process works in terms of the amendments. The comprehensive plan, the city's guiding document, is a long-range plan that's forecasted, that is used to identify goals, policies, and then the needs of how we plan to accommodate the growth over the next 20 or so years. It should be considered a living document, but generally the goals and policies stand with the document over its several iterations. Ensuring consistency with the comprehensive plan, the Growth Management Act directs cities to create a docket that identifies amendment applications, so changes to the plan and the proposals to be considered. For the 23 cycle, the window for applications was open January through May. We did receive one application. We had two pre-application meetings. One moved forward for the 2023 docket. That is 17 less than we had last year, and I think we all remember those fun meetings. So in order to establish the docket, as I mentioned, it's a two-part process. One is establishing the docket, what items or applications should be considered. That requires a public hearing and a recommendation from the Planning Commission. And then it's sent to the Planning Commission for another public hearing and a resolution. That resolution formally establishes the applications to be considered for that cycle. Then it's kicked back to staff for a full evaluation. And when that evaluation is complete, there will be a workshop followed by a public hearing with the Planning Commission to hear and make a recommendation based on the results of that evaluation. That recommendation is then sent back to the City Council for another workshop and public hearing and an eventual decision resulting in an ordinance. So this is a very long process. We try to do the best we can to simplify it for both the applicant, staff, and our decision makers. So in terms of establishing the docket, the Pasco Municipal Code has several criteria for us to look at when we're looking at the items to determine should this be further evaluated. And that criteria is there sufficient time for council to make an informed decision? Will the city be able to conduct sufficient analysis to develop or determine if policy or development regulations are necessary? Paraphrasing a bit here. Has the proposed amendment been previously rejected for consideration? Will the amendment implement and comply with the adopted comprehensive plan and the goals and policies of the regulations of the Washington State Growth Management Act? And is the proposal better addressed through another planning process? And so with that, I wanted to share with you the one application we have for the 23 cycle. That is an application file number CPA 2023-001. The description of the proposal is a future land use amendment, so a change to the land use, not the zoning, the land use, from the current low-density residential to mixed residential and commercial. The site encompasses two separate parcels, two separate legal lots, totaling just under 3 acres, approximately 2.86 acres. The site is located on the southeast corner of Road 100 and Argent. And the environmental determination, the SEPA determination, received a determination of non-significance that was issued in mid-June of this past year. I do want to emphasize that with any land use proposal, this included that there is no project, permit, building, or action associated with it. It is simply a land use matter. So any further development of the site, whether approved or not, would require potentially a rezone, which comes back to the hearing examiner and then the council, and any other project or building associated with the end land use and zoning classification requires evaluation by staff in accordance with the Pasco Municipal Code. So it could still require more decision maker actions. So with that, a map of the site area, you can see it outlined in that red area. My apologies for the thin line there, but it is on the southeast corner of West Argent and Road 100. This is a public hearing. Notifications and letters were mailed out to residents and property owners within the proximity established by the Pasco Municipal Code. I do believe we have both the applicant and residents here this evening to testify on the project. So with that, on the land use matter. With that, staff is happy to answer any questions we can this evening. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that presentation. And to clarify, this is just a recommendation to include it on the docket. It's not a decision about anything, right? It's just inclusion in the amendment docket.
That is correct. And my apologies. I actually forgot to go through the criteria and staff's evaluation of that. And if I could, I'd like to run through that to give this application its due diligence. So I'll run through the criteria with staff's response. And so with respect to criteria 1, is there sufficient time? There is. This is a fairly minor land use amendment application. The city does have available resources to conduct sufficient analysis and develop any necessary policy or regulatory standards associated with this. This item has not been proposed before, therefore has not been subject to a rejection or denial. We feel that it does, based on our evaluation, does comply with the intent of the Growth Management Act, which includes providing an opportunity to amend the comprehensive plan, which this application is seeking to do. And based on the scope of this project, we believe the annual amendment cycle is appropriate to accommodate this request.
There's any questions on this one?
Robert, just curious, what's the, this is a, the verbiage I'm probably gonna get wrong. So I realize it's just a step forward, but you wanna change it to low density residential and mixed residential and commercial, correct? Could you tell me what the north of that plot, what is on the north side of the north side of that plot, which would be this,
The church.
That church, okay, so what is that zoned? And, or the verbiage may be wrong. I mean, the adjacent, right? Is this just gonna be like an island? Or is the other things close to the same? See what I'm saying?
We'll provide a zoning map next time this is in front of you, but I believe the property to the north is likely a C1 zone, so commercial. It is in the general vicinity with what you see here. It is surrounded by low density residential, which allows 3 to 6 dwelling units per acre. Not too far to the north, you will have variations of medium density residential, high density residential, commercial, mixed residential, commercial, etc. Because you'll get closer to the Chapel Hill and Interstate 182 interchange.
I understand. Thank you.
Comments? Okay, yeah, I drive by this every day, so I know exactly where it is. If there's any other comments or questions from commissioners, I'll open it up.
No, actually.
Okay. Let's go ahead and open it up for public hearing comments. I assume there are folks here to speak on this item. If you are here to speak on this item, please come forward and state your name and city of address.
Sure. Shouldn't we hear first from the person who is actually in favor of this? I think they should speak first.
Yeah. Tell us what's going on.
The opportunity was for anyone, so whoever wants to come up and speak can come up and speak. So, yeah.
Do I have access to the media here, the screen? Is John back there?
You want to present something?
I have pictures just of the vicinity.
Okay, John, can you assist with photos?
It's not particularly prudent to this stage in the process, but I thought I'd offer it up. So if he comes out, that's fine. My name is Shane O'Neill. I represent Clover Planning and Zoning in Pasco, Washington. Thank you, sir.
Excuse me. Could we turn up the volume? Mr. Turner here is having a hard time hearing.
Maybe just speak closer to the microphone would be helpful.
Will do. Okay. I'll just play this. This is aerial footage of the vicinity. The vicinity subject site is right in front of you. It's looking south. Okay, so I'm here on behalf of the property owner. We amended our application to include 2 parcels, like Jacob said, totaling about 3 acres. I'll say the last part first. I just wanted to reiterate that this stage in the process isn't really intended to analyze any site-specific details or even zoning specific considerations. This is a land use map amendment, and there will be several other public hearings where neighbors can come speak if they have concerns. I'll also offer my business card if those residents would like to contact me for more information or to discuss this. So I'd like to first encourage the planning commissioners to review my application materials. I've taken quite a bit of time to put those together. They're strictly aligned with the criteria that Jacob mentioned, together with the other criteria that come later on in the process for consideration. I know this is always a tough subject for the immediately surrounding neighbors, but typically a resident's resistance to change runs counter to the adopted goals and policies of Pasco's comprehensive plan and the Washington State Growth Management Act. As confirmed by Jacob's staff report, our application clearly satisfies the 5 code criteria to be placed on the docket for further consideration. At the next public hearing, when discussion of site-specific impacts is admissible for the Planning Commission's review. Our goal here is to do a redevelopment of this site. We want to bring some convenient neighborhood scale retail services by amending the land use map to mixed residential and commercial land use designation, which has a couple zones available within it. I think the city has already set precedent that this mixed res commercial land use designation is appropriate next to the single family, or excuse me, the low density residential land use designation. That's the case in my neighborhood near Road 68. It was applied on a broad scale next to the single family land use designation. So we want the property owner wants to bring some neighborhood scale convenient retail services to the surrounding neighborhood. This is off topic. It's a very high impact intersection. That's probably not the greatest to live right on that corner. That's really concludes most of my presentation, because I want to limit my testimony to the scope of what's being considered tonight. So I just want to urge you to place this item on the docket so that we can talk about it in more detail later. That pine tree there is on the easterly parcel that's subject to this application. This is the subject intersection, which, by the way, our project would probably be required to contribute a significant amount of funding towards intersection improvements, which I think are needed here. There's the church parking lot across the street. I've outlined the site so you can get an idea on the size of it. 3 acres, I think, brings it out of the classification of like a spot zone. Spot zones are more like a one lot, like a small residential lot. I could go on, but I think that's the limitation of our purview tonight. I'll leave that up for now.
Yeah, can you stay a minute in case any of the commissioners have questions for you?
Would you like me to remain at the podium?
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
This is Commissioner Lehrman. It might be for the applicant or it might be for Jacob. Is your pictures updated with the current fire station? Is that right below south? That's a little north on Road 100. Okay.
I took these in the late winter this year. Any other questions? And again, we'll have a more detailed discussion on this item once it's placed on the docket.
Thank you for being here.
Feel free to call me back to the podium if you like.
Thank you. All right, anyone else here to speak on this item in the public hearing? Come on up.
Yeah, I'm James Larson. I live 9817 Star Lane. I live just south. I have 10 feet that butt up to this actual property. I grew up in Pasco, and I always wanted to live out in Riverview area because the ambience out there, just to get, you know, it's sort of like country, and I just wanted to have that style that was out there, and this is an encroachment. I believe we don't need any commercial convenience. It's close enough up Road 100 to where the gas station is. That firehouse is actually on the other side of that northern housing community. I want to keep this short. I walked the neighborhood and to talk to people tonight. There were three one that said that she would try and make it, but she didn't know where city council was. And two others had health concerns. They are opposed. So there's three others that are opposed. I think it destroys the ambience of the immediate neighborhood to put in more commercial. I am fine with the church. A church is sort of what community is about. So, and I know this is not like the formal hearing, so I'm just going to leave it at that. All right, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your opinion. Anyone else want to speak on this item?
My name is Ron Anderson. I live at 2909 Road 100, just down from this place. Everything else around there is 1 acre or half-acre lots. Everything's established, everything's set aside, but this one lot belonged to Don Ford years ago and several other people in between. I don't know exactly what he plans to do with this. It's been suggested that he's going to put in a service station, he's going to put apartments in, he's going to do all kinds of things. But we don't really know because that's not part of this hearing. And so it's pretty hard to object to something that you don't even know is going to happen. But my feeling is it should stay 1 acre lots or half-acre lots because that's what's around there. And it shouldn't go to 12,000 square foot lots, which is a stupid thing anyway. But you guys do it all over. So, but, and the only reason I say that is because I'm the retired fire chief from Franklin County for 30 years. And have been gone for about 20 years. And I fought the cul-de-sacs and I fought all the dead end roads and I fought the hydrants and systems. And so the new additions that you guys are putting in don't make any sense to me. The one just north of that one only has one entrance going in and one entrance coming out. And if the hydrant is used at that entrance, there's no way for those people to get out of that community. See, that wasn't good planning. And I'm worried that you're going to do something like you did down at 68 in Argent and put in one of those big, whatever they are, that would totally ruin the area. So I'm just totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your opinion. Anyone else?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ivan Pernetta. I live at 2917 Road 100. May I change this? That is my home right there. My entire north side shares the property or borders the property that is being proposed. I've lived there a little over 2 years now. The main reason I moved in there is because just of what Mr. Anderson and Mr. Larson stated. It's a quiet neighborhood. I oppose any commercial being moved in, especially as close as it is to my home. The pictures Mr. O'Neill has up here show neighborhood. Children walking to this road right here is Argent. It leads to McLaughlin and Chihuahua High School. We don't need commercial there. It doesn't belong here. There's plenty of growth, areas for growth within Pasco, and it shouldn't be amongst residential. So I oppose it, specifically where my property is right up there and the purposes of me moving in where I did. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dave Turner. I live at 9909 Star Lane. I live directly behind this property. I, for years, have tried to get them to clean up those pine trees, the 4 dead trees that are along that fence line, to no avail. I've called Pasco code out a number of times, fire hazard. I get no response. I don't agree with putting any kind of a, I don't know what he's up to. There has been no proposal yet. But with that much acreage, I'm sure there's going to be some kind of a business, which I am totally against. We owned, like I said, each one of those acreages were like, I believe, 8/10 of an acre when they were all broke up years and years and years ago. We would like to divide. We want to build a house off onto the left-hand side of that property, 4/10 of an acre there, which we're looking at right now. I'm just totally against any kind of mall or any kind of business association out there. I think it should be left to housing. There's been some really nice people. I do applaud, at least they're starting to clean it up. They're all of a sudden, they're out there mowing trees down. They took the field. The field was this high with dead grass. One spark, and that would have been gone. Those pine trees are a real nuisance to me because they're on that fence line, and I clean up with it every week. And pine, they did come out years ago. He sent somebody out there to do some work. The idea behind them was to take a backhoe and reach up to those pine trees and rake the limbs down off onto the ground and bury them out there in that field. And there's still some hanging there that they broke off that they never did, but they never did anything with it. And I've always said it, see, that used to have pine trees down both sides. Down on the left side and the right side was all the way to the road. The woman that lived in there, we had a really bad storm here back in the 80s, I believe it was. We had almost 100-mile-an-hour winds that came up, took all those trees down on the side, blew fences down, roofs off, tore up a lot of property. Those along the back have stayed. And that one reason is because there's a septic tank out there. There's 2 of them. And I'm sure they're feeding off from that. But I am totally against any kind of businesses going in there. So I'll just conclude.
Thank you for sharing your opinion. Anyone else want to speak on this item? One more call.
Hi, good evening. I'm Connie Vance Smith, and I am not here as a resident of Pasco. Land use plans are my hobby. I'm from Kennewick. And I'm here to encourage you to relook at your criteria with, I understand you have looked at them, and I do But I'm here to encourage you to relook at the criteria and reconsider reopening your land use plan this year for this one item at all. It's a lot of work and effort and requirements that would have to be met if you're going to reopen the land use plan. And I don't think it's a good use or appropriate way to use the comprehensive land use plan for Pasco. I think the criteria in particular that you should reconsider is whether it's consistent with your land use plan, and maybe I misunderstood your analysis of that criteria. But online, I'm pretty sure I saw a yes, that it's consistent with the land use plan. And I would just note for the record that there's no pictures at all showing the land use plan in map with an overlay of this. And that if there was, what you would see would be a sea of yellow, and in that sea, a dot of purple. And that it would be purple standing alone in this area. There's not purple nearby this. And the yellow, you could probably explain this much better than I could. But the change would be from yellow to purple. And there is purple above, but it's quite a ways above, and it's very consolidated. And the whole purpose, or one of the main purposes of a land use plan, is to consolidate like uses with other like uses. And this actually flies in the face of the purpose of land use planning for so many reasons. And I'll just highlight a couple of those here tonight. And the first is that it's putting in a use that is not really in this area. You have all these homeowners here tonight to tell you, this doesn't match what they were expecting. It doesn't match the size. It just is not a match. There is that purple designation that is close to the freeway, and there's a large block of land set aside for that purpose, and it would be appropriate for the city to decide not to open its land use plan, but to encourage the developer to pick lands that are in the area that's already designated for that purpose, or to be asking to expand. Arguably, it might be appropriate to ask to expand up by the purple and expand the purple by the purple or adjacent to it or touching the existing purple, but not to move it into the yellow residential zone. I don't mean to hit that too much. So this is very piecemeal. And I would just point out to you also that it apparently is the singular only request this year. So I would encourage you, even if you thought maybe somehow this was appropriate, it should be done in another year where there's more requests and you open things up once for multiple requests, not open everything up for one request. And it's more important than ever to consider that because of the size of the lots. The proponent said, one person used the word minor, and this is not minor to anybody who lives there. But the terminology, I think, was, sorry, I'm having problems finding the terminology they used. That this was not a spot zone. This is a spot zone. What I heard anyway was this is not a spot zone because it's not just one lot. No, by golly, it's two lots. But that is exactly the size of something that amounts to a project, not a land use plan change. And this project, which this really is a project, this brings us to the point that there's been no transparency at all about what this project might actually be. The purpose of land use plans is to avoid non-conforming uses being put in and to avoid this very type of thing where something is called a land use change, but it's really clearly a project. a project that's being pushed forward with the people in the area having no transparency at all about what is actually being planned. And I think that's part of why people who are looking at this have no sense of trust or confidence with this development idea, because it's being shielded. It's behind a curtain what's actually going on and being planned. Even if Pasco were to decide, you know, we really want to create a postage stamp island of a different use in this residential area of half-acre, 1-acre houses, even if you did that, the most logical thing would be to take it one step further. This is low-density housing. So maybe, unfortunately, maybe this corner would move to medium-density housing. I mean, there's maybe a shred or iota of sense to that. But to make this major of a change, no, there's no sense at all in that. So this is not minor to anyone who lives in West Pasco. This is one more cut where West Pasco dies a death by 1,000 cuts of ruining the quiet residential area that it was intended to be. So rather than moving this forward at all, I think that it should be, at a minimum, turned back to the people who would be recommending it to you to go reevaluate whether this matches the criteria. And because it does not, in my humble opinion, match a reason to open this for land use planning, let alone zoning. And so I would ask that this not be moved forward at all, and that Pasco consolidate its time and resources and wait until there are more things before you open your land use plan. And I appreciate you considering my comments. Thank you very much. Can I stay here?
Go ahead. It sounds like we have some questions for you.
So I notice you're looking down a lot and you're looking at notes or something and you're talking about the land use plan, the map and stuff. Do you have a picture of that? Or are you just looking at notes?
The picture is online. I think it's one of the reasons that this hearing is fatally flawed and cannot move forward at all is because you're not being presented with a picture of the map.
You don't have it. That was my question.
No, it's on the internet. I don't have a map. I didn't bring one with me.
Commissioner, I can attempt to maybe address the the question and certainly the concern that there is staff acknowledges that there's a lack of the comprehensive material supplied to the Planning Commission today, in particular the lack of the land use map and the underlying zoning map. The colors that a member of the public was mentioning reference. The purple is the color of mixed residential commercial land use. Yellow is the color for the low density land uses, and those are spread out throughout the city based on the land use classifications determined by the Planning Commission and Council and the underlying applicants over the years. So staff certainly wants to acknowledge that that information was not shared with the Planning Commission. We understand that that may present both an unfair an unfair opportunity for members of both the public and the applicant themselves to appropriately represent their interest. And so staff certainly understands if this item be continued to October so that we can come back and apologize to the applicant and members of the public, certainly for delaying the process, but in an effort to make sure that there's confidence in the recommendation made by both the commission and staff, that information be presented to you fully.
That's great, thank you.
That was exactly my point. And the reason I asked if you had that, I just wanted to see it today, right? And we don't have it like Jacob mentioned. And so, first of all, thank you for your testimony. That's exactly some of the stuff that you said is exactly why I asked the question that I did at the beginning of this, right? What is adjacent to this? And that's what I'm thinking. Thank you for that response, Jacob. That addresses auditory learners. That's not me. right? I'm a visual kinesthetic learner. And so it's really hard for me to picture that without having that in front of me. That's why I was asking you. I know that's kind of a little short, but I was getting ready to make a motion after that, when we get to that point of exactly what you just said, Jacob. So thank you very much. I appreciate what you have to say.
Commissioner, is it possible we could pull it up online? We have access to it? I think I have it online.
I don't think it was provided to the public ahead of the meeting in a way that was useful enough that it should be presented at this point.
I think it's fine. It sounds like what Jacob has suggested is that we come back and continue this next month. I would remind everyone that this is a part of the process for the comprehensive plan amendments, and this is a normal part of the process that we go through. And so if it meets the eligibility for that process, that's all we're considering. We're not considering, yes, this is a done deal, you can build a service station. We're just saying, does it meet the criteria to be accepted in the criteria for comprehensive plan amendments? But I do agree. I think it sounds like it's a good idea for us to continue this next month.
Hoping that before you bring this to public hearing again, that your criteria will be revised and it will indicate that this is not consistent with the land use plan, because it is not. And I think if it comes up again and it indicates that that criteria is met, that could be a real problem. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing tonight. Is there anyone else that wants to share on this item or have, express their opinion on this item?
You guys are going back in my knowledge here. The property just north of there where the church is, the remainder part of that vacant land was dedicated as a school church school. And it's was purchased originally from the school that's now running off of Road 88 and Court Street, that they use the church there for their school. And so that property was originally bought from Olson's farm, and they sold that front part to that Christian school, and then the remainder was to be dedicated as and build a church school on the back portions of that. That was the original plan 15 years ago or so. So, thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Go ahead. I'd ask you to keep your comments brief since you've already spoken.
Thank you. Shane O'Neill, representing the applicant. You know, Connie had some great points, but I think they are definitely pertinent in the next stage of the process. I discourage you guys depriving this property owner of his right to this process at this point, just because other people didn't apply. Yeah, it's 2 lots, but it is 3 acres. It's very big. And, you know, I have other materials that reflect why this is suitable. It's at the intersection of 2 arterial roadways, and that's reflective of other commercial and slash residential, high-density residential hubs in the city. This development plan isn't set. I can't tell anybody what will go there, but, you know, we have low-density residential, and this mixed residential commercial designation allows for medium density residential zones. So I think it's premature to make these assumptions on what will go there. I just request the Planning Commission this time take my application for further consideration at the right point in the process. Thank you.
Briefly, please.
I would say, no, I disagree. It matters very much that there's only one applicant. It is a lot of work for the city to open, and it matters very much about the size. And this idea that they can't tell anyone what will go there really goes to the very point that this is a project. It's not really a land use issue. Thank you.
My family actually was looking at, when that was for sale, to buy that property to live there at one time. And my comment is that the owner of those two sites, he can sell those properties. I'm sure somebody will want to live in that type of environment, and he can buy commercial, already zoned property north on Road 100. That commercial zone is far enough away, but close enough to where it's convenient, but yet you're not impacted. And I'm sure that the impact of this will cause more traffic. You're going to have to do something on the corner if a commercial goes in there. And I think it could even increase, because I was talking to people, they said it could increase crime just by what the environment is. I grew up on Pearl Street, just north of the post office, and he mentioned it earlier in another thing of the gas station on the corner of Court Street. That's where Eric Orange shot somebody, gang-related shooting, and an innocent bystander got killed. And that was my neighborhood. And I was hoping to get away from the commercial and teenagers and kids congregating at these places at night. And that's my rebut, I guess.
Thank you. All right, if there are no further speakers, we will close the public hearing. Okay, public hearing is closed. Sounds like, would you like a motion or you just want to continue?
We can continue. Staff would appreciate if the Planning Commission is interested in hosting a second public hearing in October, so that we can prepare notifications to nearby residents, et cetera.
I think probably the recommendation would be a second public hearing with the more information like the zoning maps, as well as let's rediscuss the criteria. I think you laid out how it meets the requirements for amendment, but maybe we can have a deeper discussion in that as well to educate us as well as the public. Does that make sense to everybody?
Sounds good.
Great. All right, we will move on to the conclusion. We have no workshop items or other business. Is there any other business from you, Jacob? I know that there was one question I had. There was something raised about the July 2024 meeting. We're looking pretty far out. Did you want to discuss that? Because there was something about the way the 4th of July week fell. They wanted to move up the Planning Commission meeting by a week. Do you remember that?
Yes, I think we can bring back that information more formally in October.
We've got a while.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to, if you can maybe tell us in the next couple of months also, I think we're up for elections of chair, vice chair. And so I think that's next February. Is that correct? But you can check and come back to us. But for the rest of the commissioners, if you are thinking about wanting to be chair, vice chair, now's the time to think about it, but I think it'll be February.
Just a quick question on that.
Yeah.
I've never seen a write-up of what both those positions' responsibilities are.
Good question. Do we have like a job description for chair and vice chair? I didn't have one either. So.
We can provide that information at the latest at the November Planning Commission meeting.
Yeah, I think if you just had a couple months in advance, that way by February, folks, because I think it hit us cold last time around. Everybody was surprised, and we had to scramble to come up with. Yeah, you ended up with me. So, so yeah, if you can just give us warning and maybe job descriptions in like December or January, then everybody's ready in February. Perfect. All right. Anything else from anyone? All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded, and the meeting is adjourned at 8:14 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.